Looks great.
Hello, my name is Niki Zita. My thesis is on measuring interactions in nature play activities at the Hands-On Children's Museum. So I wanted to know, when starting my thesis, was how we can, as the older generation, give the younger generation the ability to connect with nature and form a type of environmental citizenship at a young age. So in doing that, I thought about how I had found my relationship with nature and the environment. And I found that at a very young age, my parents would let me just run around and explore our backyard. My mom wouldn't mind that I would catch frogs and bring them inside the house. At that time, I didn't even know if I was picking up a frog or a toad, or even that it was an amphibian. I was simply exploring my surroundings. So I came to the realization that my love of nature did not come from biology classes. It came from exploring and having fun in nature before I can even express why I found that enjoyable. I think that since you're all here, it can be safe to assume that you all feel a connection to nature in one way or another. And maybe that has also stemmed from something in your childhood, whether it's running around a farm, hunting, or just exploring your backyard like I did. Now, it's hard to pinpoint these specific moments in life that help form our way of thinking or how we choose to view and interact with the world. So I began to think of places that are meant to help form those views and interactions. And my first thought was schools. And while those are wonderful places to learn about the world around you, I felt it could be a bit too constricting and structured to really cultivate those exploratory activities in nature. I next thought about my childhood again, and growing up on the East Coast, I was exposed to many different science museums from Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, down to Maryland for family trips and for school field trips. I remember vividly seeing and being able to touch a horseshoe crab for the first time in the Port Discovery Children's Museum in Baltimore. And I figured a children's museum would be a good place to try to find a way to create those meaningful nature interactions in a more relaxed but controlled space. So my research questions for this were, how are the children coming into the Hands-On Children's Museum interacting and learning from the different nature play activities? And do these experiences have the potential to have a positive, lasting effect on the children later in life that could lead to environmental citizenship? So some background on the Children's Museum. It was founded in 1987 as a provider of hands-on science and art education in Southwest Washington. It moved onto the state capitol campus in Olympia in 1998. The museum finally moved to its current and largest location in 2014, and despite its many different locations, the museum's mission has stayed the same. It states, the Hands-On Children's Museum stimulates curiosity, creativity, and learning through fun, interactive exhibits and programs for children, families, and school groups. Among the list of what they envision the museum to represent, they aspire to be the premier providers of hands-on science and art education for young children in the community. So in observing and studying environmental education in children, the literature has been able to identify indicators of children developing relationships with and understanding the natural world. These indicators include positive experiences in outdoor settings or with natural materials. This can be simply playing outside or playing with natural materials to, say, make a fort. Another is being curious about nature, and this can simply be just watching birds fly in and out of their nests. Appreciation for the qualities of nature and natural objects, and this is more like a child appreciating a flower for its vibrant colors, or a feather for its softness. And being exposed to an adult's support and guidance within nature. So this would have an adult reinforcing their exploration and playing in nature. So with that, I was able to create an observation form that I used to document what I saw the children doing at the nature play activities at the museum. I created 4 major learning behavior sections: exploratory behaviors, initiative and intentionality behaviors, social scaffolding behaviors, and behaviors that show development of understanding. Along with that, I documented who initiates the child to start the activity, the approximate age of the child, and the type of involvement of the child or caretaker with them. I observed 4 different nature play activities. The first one was called kitchen tool exploration. And this one, the children were using different kitchen tools to play with different herbs, berries, and veggies that could be found in our children's garden. This one was interesting to have the children recognize what food they eat, as well as the ones that were growing in the garden. So having the kids make that connection to their food and the earth. The second activity was flower and fruit dissections. This had the children using scalpels and tweezers to look inside flowers and different fruits, being able to identify seeds and different parts of the plant. The third was making fern crowns. This had the kids using different ferns and flowers to create wearable art. And the fourth activity was creating plantable paper. Here, the children were using recycled shredded paper to create new sheets of paper with seeds in them that could be planted later on. So here are my final results. I observed 100 children over the 4 activities. I observed 20 kids in kitchen tool exploration, 40 kids in flower and fruit dissection, 20 kids in fern crowns, and 20 kids in the plantable paper activity. So in all, I had observed 20 kids for each day that I did observations. So here you can quickly see that the engagement behavior section had the largest numbers, with 96% of children observed playing with and exploring the nature materials. And to add to that, 82% of the children initiated the interaction with the activities. 74% showed intense concentration on the activity. And I'd like to point out that the ages of the children that were observed, 43% being 5 or younger, another 43% being between the ages of 6 and 10, and then the other 14% being over 10 years old. So over half of these children were under 10 years old and still engaging and were interested in these activities. Another interesting part of the data is the number of caregivers that were not involved in the activities with their child. So that's 44% of children exploring without their caregivers' involvement. 19% of the caregivers were supportive and would stand close by watching and help the child when asked. And what I really enjoy seeing from this was that only 9% of the caregivers were just doing the activity for the child. Usually when I work, it feels like the parents were always doing the activity for the child, but here it did not seem like that was the case, even when 16% of the caregivers were the ones that initiated the child's involvement in the activity. Okay, so here I'm breaking down the individual learning behavior sections. So this one is engagement behaviors, and as you might have noticed in the previous slide, the highest numbers were seen where children were playing with and exploring the nature materials at 38.7%. The engagement in the engagement behavior section, and 29.8% were focused and concentrating intensely on the activity. The lowest number for the section was observing the child staying after they finish a part of the activity, try another part. This could be due to different variables, like parents trying to leave the museum or a sibling running off, or simply because the child was no longer interested and wanted to see other parts of the museum. In this section, I added showing emotion, which got 15.7%, and this was documenting any type of emotion that the child exhibited while doing this activity. So this included frustration, happiness, excitement, that kind of thing. In the intention and initiative behavior section, the highest was recognizing the steps to the activity. So for this, I was looking for children that seemed confident in the activity with minimal help from peers or adults. So maybe they were shown what to do once and they were able to recreate that with relative ease. Next was developing unique strategies and tools in the activity. I saw this most often with the kitchen tool activity, where the kids might try to grate a rosemary branch or squish a grape with a garlic press. I also saw children announce their plans for squishing the grapes or other materials. I had a few kids say that they were going to make dinner or a potion for their parents with what they were playing with. In the other activities, I had children say that they were going to make a princess crown with the fern crowns or some plantable paper to put in their garden at home, or even that they just wanted to cut open a mushroom. This section, I was very interested by the results because I thought it would be higher overall numbers. for this section, but many children did not interact with other children that they did not know. 30.7% were seen noticing other people's work, but did not engage or interact with them. Even requesting help from other adults was only 23.3%. Working previously with children, I have always found it amusing that they could just pick up a conversation with each other and become best friends after only talking to each other for 5 minutes. It did make me question if this was a side effect of COVID and quarantining, because remember the majority of the kids observed were under the age of 10. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And the behaviors section, in the behaviors showing development of understanding section, it was nice seeing higher numbers in understanding the concepts presented in the activities, as well as having the children use familiar tools with new materials. So this would look like a child having, like a child expressing that they have used tweezers before, but they've never used them on a flower. Since it's nice to have that child like link something they're familiar to with something new in nature. I also noticed how expresses realization takes up 17.8% of this section. This looked like a child verbally saying like, aha, or, oh, that's how that works, or something similar, which is an indicator of understanding and comprehension, and can also be a way of expressing emotion towards the activity. So thinking back to the indicators of children developing relationships with and understanding the natural world, that includes positive experiences in outdoor settings or with natural materials, being curious about nature or the environment, learning and being supported by an adult, and an appreciation for the qualities of nature and natural objects. The most stirring number would be the 96% of children actively engaging with the natural materials, along with the 82% of children initiating that engagement. And 74% showed intense concentration and focus. And since only 13% of caregivers connected to the child's prior knowledge and experiences, I wonder if these children are able to have these kinds of similar experiences at home, or if their caregivers support them in exploring nature. It's also possible that the caregiver simply did not verbalize this during my observations. I would also like to recognize that my research was simply through observation, and that I chose to not interview the children or the parents for this research. And as I had mentioned before, the social scaffolding section was relatively low, and I wonder if that is due to COVID. So that could be another possible research topic on children learning and peer-to-peer engagement. It is possible that COVID has forced more people to get in touch with nature, but I'm obviously not sure, but that would certainly be an interesting topic to explore next. In all, based on that data that I was able to collect, and based on the literature's indicators of children developing relationships with nature, it can be said that these nature play activities do have the potential to have a positive, lasting effect on the children later in life that could lead to environmental citizenship. For future research, however, I would like to see a study that could be maybe a 5 to 10 year follow-up for children who have experienced the museum and the nature play activities, and their views on nature then versus now. And then I would just like to take this time to acknowledge some of the people who have helped me through this whole thesis process. Obviously, Kathleen for helping me so much on my thesis, the Hands-On Children's Museum for allowing me to collect data, my partner Alaya for reminding me to relax sometimes, feeding me when I forget to eat for a whole day because I'm focusing on work or school, and for letting me just vent and talk to him when I have had a very stressful week. My family for supporting me in any and every way possible, checking in on me, also making sure I eat, and constantly reassuring me and telling me that they're proud of me. My younger brother for being my motivation to be the older sister he can look up to. And last but certainly not least, my mom for instilling this love of nature in me. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening.